when you're that high up in the hamster wheel trap, it's fair to say that you don't own a business. Your business owns you. And unless you do something about it, you may find a time that your business will ruin you.
Peter, thank you for joining the Business Takeaway podcast today. It's great to have you on the show. Do you want to give a bit of a background to who you are and what finds you here today?
Well, as you said, my name's Peter Boolkah. Look, I'm an entrepreneur, business owner, primarily in a couple of businesses. The one we'll talk about today will be the coaching one, where I've been doing that for 21 years and what very much led me down the route of actually writing a book. And it's actually how we first sort of got to connect, because we have a mutual connection. You happen to see it on his feed, and here we are today.
As we were saying off air before recording, the powers of social media and one person commenting on one status and suddenly you appear on my feed. Let's get into that, right? The book is called Your Business Sucks. What was the motivation behind the book? And do you want to tell us a little bit about it, really?
What was the motivation around it? Well, it was a 20-year research project into businesses. And I looked at the patterns that businesses have. Look, you think about it. Why do people start a business? I mean, they start a business because they want more freedom. They want more time. They want to have more money. And they want to get away from the dickhead boss that they left in the first place. I mean, that's the reason a lot of people start their business. But what they don't realize is that when they start their business, no one ever tells you that it's going to be much harder to work for yourself than anybody else. That actually you're not going to have much free time, if any. The stress is going to be a lot higher. And you're probably going to end up working for a bigger dickhead than you did before. And businesses there, and we do laugh about this, but business is meant to give you more life, not take away life. But I've seen so many business owners start a business, and instead of it sort of giving them the life they wanted, it both destroys their life and the life of those around them. And wouldn't it be nice if we could stop that from happening, or actually reduce it from happening? So that was my motivation for writing the book. I didn't just want it to be another, let's have another business book out there that makes you feel good about yourself. It was more like, let's have a book that actually hits you with the hard truths and helps you prevent doing the stupid shit that gets you in trouble in the first place. So that's very much the overview.
and the title obviously says what it is. I've got it on my reading list. It's on the pile to be read coming up in the next few weeks. So do you want to give us a sort of what the book says, somebody who's not read it, and a bit of an introduction to what it says and what it helps people with?
Yeah, so look, as you say, the title is Your Business Sucks. And I needed the title to be really hard hitting. But don't get me wrong, the title is Your Business Sucks, but it's about, then the subtitle underneath is How to Build a Business Without Destroying Your Life, which is ultimately what it was. But can you imagine if I wrote a title, Your Business is Not Quite as Good as It Could Be? I mean, who the hell's going to read that? It's not exactly going to capture your attention or piss you off, is it? So I needed something that was going to be emotional. And I've had quite a bit of abuse actually from people. Wait, what are you saying? I suck. Well, if your business sucks, then probably you do suck a little bit. So maybe there's a few things you have to change. But it's a conversation starter. And I think that's the really most important thing. How do you get the conversation moving? And that's what I try to do.
I think you said to the point at the start, right? You said that, most people set their own business up because they want to spend more time with the family, spend more time there, right? And I've run my own business. I now work in corporate, and the two jobs, very different pressures, but both as both as sort of, time sensitive pressure, more stress. The bit of stress I don't have now is I don't have to worry about how paying the bills every week and every month. That's somebody else's problem, which is a lovely one. But other than that, running my own business was probably more stressful than any other job I've had. And people get the wrong perception of that.
They do. That makes me sad though, Ben. That makes me sad because you had a business and then you end up going back into another corporate job. And so many people do that when actually there is a better way of running the business where you do over time minimize the stress and you do get to that sort of that place of happiness. And I'll give you one example. Let's talk about our mutual contact and actually the person who wrote the foreword for my book. And that was John Neal. And if we go back, when I first met John, he was stressed as hell. I mean, this was the guy that was doing paperwork on a Saturday morning on his kitchen table. It had the stress and the pressures of the job during the week, and then it was with him on the weekend. He had no respite from it. And he actually started his business because he didn't like the dickhead of a boss he was working for. Totally felt underappreciated and everything. And he weren't in a great place. He really wasn't in a place of happiness. And it took him around 5 years to structure his business. But if anyone sort of tuning into the Today Show, look at John Neal, Jonneil, you'll find him. You drop him a message, he'll always tell you his story, and his story is fascinating. In fact, his story is in the foreword of my book. And he would have been the unassuming entrepreneur. But he went, learned how to do his business, got it where he wanted to, and ended up living a life that he only dreamt of. And that's the bit that makes me really happy. When you get through it, and there's a lot of pain, but the reward at the other end is totally worth it. So there is hope for everyone. So that's probably your story resonates with me. And was probably even a bigger catalyst for me to write the book. And I sincerely hope that maybe one day you rekindle your entrepreneur spirit, and maybe you'll do something again.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I've sort of, I won't go completely into it now because that's an episode in its own right, what went wrong. But I think, I learned a lot of lessons from that, and I would go into it with a completely different view, having been in another business for 10 years now. But it's also, I still feel a little bit scarred without being into a mental counselling session as well. I feel a little bit scarred with some of the things that happened. And so you sort of go, well, I don't necessarily want to put myself in that plane. But you also go, it was enjoyable at the same time. If I could have solved that problem, and that problem, then it would have been enjoyable to do it. So it's finding something potentially at some point which might open those sorts of things. But just
it's a love-hate relationship.
It is. You get a freedom that you don't perhaps get in corporate world, but you have some nice things in corporate world that you don't get in your running your own business. Because I know some of my colleagues listen to this, so I don't want them thinking that I'm going to disappear off out of corporate world. But sort of looking at some of those business, but I like the swan analogy, or talk about this. From the outside, can a lot of businesses be looking good, as you said, but actually inside, fundamentally bad for the person who's running it, right? That must be something quite common. You've done a lot of coaching, you must see that day in, day out, right?
Listen, all the time. Do you know what I call it? Social media syndrome. Everyone looks at this dumbass that's gone and rented a Lamborghini, has bought an expensive pair of shades. Look at me. I'm age 23. I've made it. Come, let me teach you how to do it. Look, it's a romance, isn't it? Everyone looks from the outside and they see a picture and they choose for themselves what that picture looks like. But you never ever see what goes on behind that. They never get to see the business owner wake up at 3 a.m. because they're not being paid and they've got financial commitments, or the company has gone down on them for £200,000, or the government that's created another piece of legislation that's made their life even more difficult. And I'll give you a really good example: the tax on NI, when they increased that for employers. It sounded like a good idea, but the amount of pressure it's put on businesses, it's unreal, and so forth and so forth. And no one gets to see that stress or feel that stress. So yes, you see something on the outside, but don't judge too much, because a lot of people think that person's so successful, hit them, tax them, but they don't see the psychological stress that they go under to achieve that, the risks they've taken, and all of those things. And sometimes, actually, they may have made a lot of money, but it's cost them a lot more in other areas, and they'll tell you that themselves.
Quite a lot as those founders, they don't share that with their employees as well.
You can't.
You can't, precisely.
Ben, you can't. I mean, when someone is working for you, they're working for you because they don't want to necessarily lead. They want to work for someone who makes the decisions. And they've got to have confidence and trust in their leader that they know what the hell they're doing. Because you get a job, you're working for someone, you've got your own life journey you're going on. And you need that company to be stable, to be well run, so that you can pay your bills, maybe buy your next house, whatever. Now, if your leader's all over the shop and they're demonstrating that they're not stable, your staff ain't hanging around. They're leaving. And plus, the employees are not going to have the perspective of a business owner. So it's very hard to have the tough conversations with them because they don't have that frame of reference. So being an entrepreneur, I'm sure you experienced this before, it's probably one of the most loneliest places you can ever be.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I had a couple of business partners for one of my businesses in a period of that time, and that was good to share a bit of that. But the other business, it was basically me, and it didn't go particularly well, and that was stressful to share that. That was really, really stressful to share that.
Well, when you read my book and you get to chapter 4, message me and then tell me how did it end up with your partners. Don't say it now. Get to chapter 4, read that, and then let me know.
I will do. As I said, it's next on the list once I finish something else. But why do you think, going back to our mutual connection and others you've worked with, why do you think they feel trapped in their business and trapped by the businesses they built?
Fantastic question. Well, you think about it, when you build a business when you start your business, you've got absolutely nothing to lose, have you? Starting from zero. And most businesses actually fail in the first 5 years. So 80% of businesses never make it to year 5. So year 1, you've got nothing to lose. By the time you get to year 5, you've got to be doing something right because you're still there. So the chances are you've made some money. You've probably employed a couple of people, even though that's not as common as you think, because in the UK there's approximately 5.6 small to medium-sized privately owned businesses, of which 4.2 million are solopreneurs. And they'll remain for solopreneurs forever. So very few businesses actually hire. So let's just make the assumption that by year 5, you've hired 2 or 3 people. You've probably, first 3 years, was robbing Peter to pay Paul. Then you started making some money, and now you're catching up on what you never got to spend. So maybe you've bought yourself a house or upgraded a slightly bigger house, done the same with the car. Maybe if you've in a relationship, you've started a family, got kids, and what you see is that your actual expenses have started to creep up. Now you've got a bigger machine to feed. And because of that stage, the machine is still very much founder dependent, founder led. What you're finding is that the business owner themselves have got to keep running. Because what happens is when they stop running, in a lot of the cases, in most of the cases, I would say, the money slows down. The money doesn't come in. So you're trapped between wanting more time but can't have more time because the business isn't structured to give you more time. So you've got to keep running to feed the machine and pay your expenses. And you can't get out of it, because what are you going to do? So it is literally the hamster wheel trap.
Which segues very nicely into my next question was, when we first connected, you said go and do the hamster wheel trap, right? And I did it. Now, obviously, that's a little bit more perhaps tailored to people who are running their own businesses, but I also did it as answering for me, and I was 83% or 82% or something within the hamster wheel trap. What's your theory behind that, and do you want to talk about that as well?
When you look at it, most people do not have time to do the things they want. So one of the things is you've got to be able to look after yourself. It's very easy when you're in your 20s and 30s to abuse your body. And most 20 to 30-year-olds, in fact, do abuse their body. Long hours, let's go out, let's enjoy it, get home late, get up early, have a good drink or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on where you are, and all those wonderful things. But unfortunately, when you start getting to the age of 45 and plus, things start to break. And the problem with the trap, and the reason I created the assessment, because I want entrepreneurs to take a really long, hard look and be truthful to themselves. Because if the business is sort of so dependent on them, no one gives it a second thought. When you're 20s, 30s, you're invincible. In your 40s, when you get to about 45 plus, you start getting a little bit disappointed that things break. But when you get to 50, the biggest thing that people fear in their 50s happens to be a heart attack. Well, that wouldn't be the thing I'd fear most, because today we are so blessed. I mean, our NHS is great for things like that. And providing it's not the widowmaker, you will survive. And you will get through it quite quickly. But what people don't talk about is the stroke. And that's the thing. The stroke is the one. It's a silent killer of businesses. Because anyone that has a stroke, even a mild stroke, can take you out for a month. Because you think about it, you're cognitively impaired. You're visually impaired. You're motor neuron impaired. You're verbally impaired. A lot of these people cannot communicate with their business. Well, imagine being out of that for 4 weeks. I've seen so many businesses where the founders come back into their business only to find they no longer have a business left because their customers have gone elsewhere. They've pissed off the people that made inquiries because they've not got back to them. People have been chasing them for payment and not been paid, so they've stopped supplying them. And they may have spent 20 years building something that they've lost in 4 weeks. So I really wanted people to take a long, hard look at themselves, the business, and actually, when you're that high up in the hamster wheel trap, it's fair to say that you don't own a business. Your business owns you. And unless you do something about it, you may find a time that your business will ruin you. And that is my thinking around it. And it's not necessarily ruin you. You may live in everything. You may live. You survive the stroke, you survive the heart attack. But imagine working 20 to 30 years of your life and then being forced into an unplanned sale because you haven't taken the thought out to plan for your retirement. And planning for your retirement is saying, I want to get my business ready. I'm going to structure it so it can be sold. Because you spend all that time, you can only sell your business once. Don't sell it under a situational distress like health or something like that. You do not want to force sell. You'll never get much money for it. That was a nice thing with John. We were planning the sale of his business 5 years out. So actually when he did go to sell the business, we managed to maximize its value. He got a really good price for it, one that he was really happy with. But he worked hard at structuring that for that sale.
And I think this is really interesting because when I was running my own businesses, we were looking at a couple of acquisitions, and most of those acquisitions were with owners. I don't want to age them completely, the people I was talking about, but probably 60 plus. They had remortgaged their house a number of times to fund various parts of their business. And their words to me, the two people I spoke to, were, I just need to pay the mortgage off. You know, and you go, you've built a business over 25 years, you've got 15, 20 staff, 10 staff, whatever it was. And you sort of go, all you're concerned about is you can go into retirement with no mortgage. And that felt sad. That felt sad to me. I mean, we didn't go through the acquisitions for various reasons, but that felt sad to me that your life's work could be put into such a small point. And that's a sad thing.
It is, but it's more common than you think. And you know why that is, though, Ben? Because it's what I call business fatigue. They get to that age, and if you go back 15 odd years, I mean, that generation of 60, that was a slightly older generation of 60. So they didn't necessarily have the knowledge we have today about taking care of yourself. So they were quite tired anyway. And they just had enough. They had what I would call founder burnout. The stress levels, the sustained stress for a 20-year, 30-year period, it got the better of them. And they just wanted out. But you know what they didn't think about? How am I going to fund the next 15 years of my life? Now, if you're looking at a state pension, that's 2/5 or nothing. I was going to say another word there, but I won't. But you understand, you get the drift. How can you live, especially with inflation being what it is these days, and the uncertainty in the world? You've just done all that hard work and you got nothing for it. And that for me is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and it was sad for those people, and I don't. They both exited their businesses separately to, as I said, to different companies. So I hope they went through and found that solution. But how have you sort of, going back to this hamster wheel? How have you the people who do the tests? What's the average percentage score? Because you must see most people 70s, 80% is most people in.
Yeah, that if they answer it honestly and don't bullshit themselves, then yes. Because it's quite unnerving when you're answering the questions. A lot of people would judge themselves, which I don't know why they do that. I mean, the reality is the test is a test and it's your current reality. It really should be the beginning of you saying, okay, well, how do I change this? Because it can be changed. It can be changed. But most people are stuck on that hamster wheel trap, and I hate to say it, because they don't know how to run a business. And they'll say, well, I've been in business for 20 years. Doesn't mean you know how to run it. It means that you've been in business for 20 years. You've survived. And I'll tell you why that is. I mean, if you think about it, we go to school, some will go to college, some will go to university. And people have educational fatigue. Now, 40 years ago, you could have been in business. You didn't have to be necessarily the brightest spark in the box. The world wasn't changing too far, and you could have done all right in business. Today, I would argue we live in the most complex era of business ever. We're moving at the fastest pace we've ever moved. Things are changing unbelievably quickly. And we've got to learn the language of business. We've got to start learning things now. And you read business books. That's not common, you know that. That's not common. I can't begin to tell you how many business owners have not read a single business book. Yeah, with the world changing around them, they expect to survive. It's not going to happen. So it is about learning. Business is a learned skill. In today's world, you've got to learn the construct of business. Otherwise, it's just lottery. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I've got I won't turn the camera around because this is a beautiful screen. Behind here is absolute chaos. So, but there's a set of books which are my go-to business books, right? And they're the ones where I've taken the most inspiration from, or I've taken the most view on leadership or culture or whatever that might be. But your point about people not knowing how to run businesses, I worked for a company where the owner sort of started because he dealt out the back of his van, and then he did a bit bigger, then he got in a garage, then it was this, then it was this, then it was this, and he got to the point where he had 60 employees, 70 employees, 100,000 square foot warehouse, and then the business was sold because it couldn't sustain what it was doing. And he, people who know me would know who that person is, but without being rude to him, he was a guy who just was in business rather than being brilliant at running the business, and he just got to a scale, and then it went. And I think I've seen that a lot with some people. Running a business today with social media, AI, pressures, movement of speed, shipping, taxes. It's a vast job to do.
It is a vast job. And not only does the founder need to sort of be educated, but the people that they've got in their various departments, they need to be what I call shit hot. They need to be up to speed. They need to be up in the latest thinking. You can't come out of university, have a marketing degree and say, do you know what, I'm going to run your marketing department. Because all the stuff that you've learned in marketing is damn history. Because there's no way you can produce a curriculum that can keep up with the pace of change. And this is the thing, we've got to be smart learners today. I mean, back in 2004, that marked the end of the industrial age. We're now in what we call the knowledge worker age. The key's in the title, the knowledge worker age. The businesses that are going to do the best in this era, over this next 100 years, are going to be the ones that are knowledge centric, that can understand the shifts in the market, and more importantly, adapt to them at pace. Instead of sitting and waiting, okay, things will go back to the way they were. They're never going back. Things will never revert. We're only moving forward. You've got one of two ways. You either fail forward fast, learn, pivot, change, or just fail. The choice is yours.
Hey, got a little favor to ask you. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please make sure you are subscribed on the platform of your choice. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever platform that might be. The more people who subscribe and the more people who like and rate the show, the more we give you an opportunity to have some great takeaways. It doesn't take you too long, and it would be a great help to us to help us grow the show. Looking at founders you've spoken to, is there a sort of self-destroying mechanism within founders, right, where they think they have to be indispensable to be a good leader?
I think that's how they train themselves. You start your business at day one. You're head of sales, head of marketing, head of accounts, head of HR in case you have to discipline yourself. You're head of delivery. You're head of everything. From day one, you're training the business to be dependent on you. And you get into the habit of dependency. It's a habit. And then you hire the first person, where now you're training that person to be dependent on you. And so forth and so forth. And I don't think they've realized what they've done. They don't realize because there's no one ever questioning their behavior. How many people say, oh, listen, you're not doing it quite right. Why are you doing that? No one does that, apart from the spouse. And either they keep arguing with the spouse or they end up getting divorced, one or the other. Spouse is not necessarily the best person to give you business advice. I'm just going to put it out there. But no, and therefore it becomes a habit that it becomes an unconscious habit. I mean, you do have some people out there that are total control freaks and narcissists. Now, the narcissists you can't help. I mean, they're just bad people. But the control freaks, I don't think they necessarily want to be control freaks. Well, maybe one or two do. But the reality, they fear letting go because their business isn't systemized, processed, and structured. They haven't clearly transferred their knowledge on how they do things into a process that someone else can follow. They hire somebody, go and do that job. They don't do it as well as a founder. Founder gets frustrated. So you see, no one can do it as good as me. Reinforces their bullshit belief. And we go into this vicious cycle of self-harm that no one ever questions. And that's why very few businesses, and the ones that do get it right, they actually then are able to scale through people and grow a great business that gives them that financial freedom and time back. I think that was one of the biggest things that John valued, was the fact that he got time to do things that he never did before. And I remember we were in Portugal at a conference. So one of the networks I'm part of happens to be Action Coach. And we had a European conference which clients come to. And there were awards and everything that clients could go for. And I do believe that year, I think John won Entrepreneur of the Year. But I do remember his wife saying to me, when you first came with you, I really thought it was a cult and everything. But I actually thank you so much because we've got our life back. And I thought, you know what? That was nice. I've gone from being a cult leader to being able to give someone back their life. At least not everyone got killed in the compound.
Yeah. And you spent lots of time coaching people from different cultures and different backgrounds. What's the most common thing that you see repeatedly? What's the patterns you see from these leaders repeatedly?
The biggest one is the lack of business education. See, hard work will only get you so far. And the one thing that I can tell you about the economy is not racist. It doesn't have a gender bias, doesn't care what your religion is, doesn't care about anything apart from two things: competency and incompetency. If you're competent, you'll get rewarded. If you're incompetent, you'll get punished. Simple. It's no different. That's as binary as it gets. And I just find that the businesses that struggle are the ones that just do not have that curiosity to learn. I mean, the worst ones out there are the ones that know everything, but know nothing and then end up going bust. I mean, ego's a horrible thing.
And then probably start another one and do the same mistakes again and again, right?
Yeah, but you know what they don't realise and they don't appreciate? It's not just their life they're ruining. Especially when they're hiring people, they're ruining their lives. Or the people that they serve. Why would you do that? So that's the biggest thing. Then the ones that really do well are the ones that are hungry, humble and smart. And if you've got those characteristics, you will go a long way.
And what's the hardest truth you have to tell these founders? Is it you need to go and read up on being better at business, or is it you need to find more time? Or what's the thing you're mostly commonly saying to
There
people?
isn't one. There
Okay.
isn't. There really isn't. There isn't one. I think there's a multitude of things. It's a multitude. I mean, probably the biggest challenge that sort of founders have. So I don't tend to kind of work with people until they're sort of 5 years plus in. Because the first 3 years, you can't tell anyone anything. It's like having a teenager. They know everything but nothing. So you normally wait till 5 years in. And by the time they've got to year 5, and you probably can to a degree also relate, it's probably been a traumatic 5 years. They stop dreaming. They forget the reason that they started the business in the first place and what they wanted it to give them. So it's like they've lost their passion and spark. And especially if they've got employees, they're not giving their employees hope. So it becomes quite I hate to say a sad place to work, in that people realize it's sad because their eyes are covered. But no, it's getting people to dream again and to start thinking that, yes, we're going to build something that will actually make us happy. And that's the hard bit. Getting people to get their vision back again. Once you've got that and you've got excitement and you've got energy, then you can start getting the flywheel spinning. But you've got to get the energy back into the business. And that's quite tough.
And I was going to say, how would you go about that? Is that just sort of taking the founder, trying to get the founder out of the business as much as he can to work on the business rather than in the business, right?
Well, we'll start with a deep dive session, really work what's what, where are we, where do we want to be, and then get them to gradually work on the business, because they're not going to be working straight fully on the business full time immediately. That's going to be a gradual process because there's going to be so much to fix. There's going to be so much to fix. But we need a starting point as to where we start moving forward.
And how many of these business owners do you see not against your skills, but how many have you seen that are almost too far gone? Are you in at places where people are literally like, we're going to close tomorrow because we're too,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you help them at that point in time? Because that's a big psychological problem.
Close, and I give them, and I put them in touch with really good people that will help them with the process. Because part of closing a company, you need to have a really good person on board that's going to help you psychologically get through it. And more importantly, then look at, okay, what does your rebirth look like? Because for some of them, there is going to be a rebirth. We had a lot of companies go bust in 08, 09 through no fault of their own because of the GFC. And actually how liquidity was sucked out of the marketplace overnight. Thank you, Lehman Brothers. But what we did do, though, is when we re-phoenixed those businesses, and that was a term back then, we're going to re-phoenix, they actually rose from the ashes a lot stronger. So it was like a second chance. And a lot of them went on to grow really nice businesses, Ben.
And talking about cases which are slightly more pleasant, going back to John, who exited, what's the difference between building a big business that's successful and building a big business that's ready for exit ready? What are you doing differently with those founders? What are you doing to help them on that?
See, when you're looking at exit ready, you're getting ready to sell it. Some people just want to keep the business and perhaps hand it down to the generation below. I mean, that's not uncommon in family-run businesses. But getting it exit ready, you've got to be thinking about what does that look like for the buyer. So if it's a management buyout, that's going to be a different structure to one for a VC company, private equity company, a trade buy. So you've got to be thinking far out, who do you want to sell to? You want to structure the business in a way that they want to buy it for maximum value. And a lot of it's going to be, by the time you get to exit, it needs to be without the founder. It so needs to be without the founder because they're going to make changes and those changes are going to traumatize the founder because it's like you've had this baby for 20 years and then they'll come with a chainsaw and they're going to chop off the head. And you've got to sit there and watch that happen. Very few founders I have seen have got the stomach for that. So I don't like earn-out periods or anything like that. If anything, just go for the clean exit. Do yourself a favor, clean exit.
For a business, what's that look like for a, are you sort of saying to them for the last year, they need to be in a place where they're basically not doing anything in the business and they're just coming in. So they're preparing themselves mentally and the business is preparing themselves mentally. Is that something you sort of, if it's a 5-year plan, actually year 5 is the fake exit almost? Is that what you work towards?
By the time you get to year 5, depending on who the buyer is, you want to make sure that the founder is independent. And to a degree, you want to make sure that the leadership is only doing strategic stuff. Leadership team work on strategy, management team work on execution, founder is now free. And then when the people coming in buying it, they can then choose how they want that structure to look like going forward. Because they'll have their own reporting structure and everything. They may not want the founder still involved. There are businesses actually where they will only buy the business for the founder to still be there because they want that founder energy to keep driving it. That's the decision the founder needs to make, whether they still want to do that or whether they want to exit. And actually, one of the businesses where one of my clients sold, he basically sold 50% of his business. Still got 50% of it, so he's still driving it, but he's driving it differently now. He's driving it within a group of companies. He sits on the board as well. So he's moved up a number of levels. And he's looking at the whole group are looking to do a final sale over the next 5 years, which will put him in line for a very healthy paycheck. But everything they're doing, whether it's acquisitions and everything, they're now rolling up the business in such a way that a big pension company or something of that ilk will buy them, because it will be a really good investment.
He's changed his, as you said, he's dramatically changed his role from being that starter founder to being a much more group CEO, chairman, whatever that might be.
He's doing acquisitions and all that. It's actually so good to see how he's going, actually. And both Danny and Lucy are on the front page of the book. So they did a beautiful quote that I've put on the front page of the book. So no, it's good to see these people. Yeah, so it can work either way. But you've got to be looking at exit way before you exit.
And what does a business that can operate successfully without a founder look like? Do you see a different culture within the business? Do you see a different things come through that business without being founder led?
I think what you'll find is you've got a competent business. So you've got a group of people that are well trained, that understand the system, the processes, strong culture, great recruitment. They don't need the founder there day in, day out, because they've got leaders within the business who understand their role within the business and they take care of their area and it all works. And more importantly, the founder's role then changes. It doesn't become the execution founder. It becomes a visionary. It gives the founder space to start thinking, okay, where can we go next? Do we want to go somewhere next? You've now created the space for thinking.
And do you think that is a more successful business that can operate without a founder than, obviously profit's great, profit is good, but do you think that's more successful as a business than having just a big profit line that's in chaos?
I probably wouldn't say, depends on what you want. The whole purpose of being a business working for yourself is you decide what your version of success is. And it's different for everybody. You know what they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, I say so is success. So I think you need to be clear about what success is for you and chase your dream, not anybody else's. If you've got a business that's turning over 300,000 and actually you've got a balance in life that you're happy with, and you literally don't want anything else, then that's fine. Because it's your dream, not their dream. That's the thing. The problem with social media and everything is I've met so many people chasing other people's dream. And they say, well, I want to grow my business. Okay, great. Why? Because I want to. Okay, I got the first time round, but why? And they can't answer. They can't tell me categorically why a bigger business is going to be better for them. Which then tells me, well, you're not living the life you want. You really not. I don't know what journey you're on, but it's definitely not your journey. And rarely does that succeed. Because at some point, the love for somebody else's journey is going to run out.
They can't hit the Ferrari they want to buy because that's their goal rather than actually building a good business, right?
Because the Ferrari was never their goal. It was just somebody else's aspiration they latched onto. That's the whole point. If you're going to do something, you've got to want it. If you don't want it, it's not going to happen. It just isn't.
Have you seen founders install that right team but still continue to not let go?
There are some that will do that. There are some. But I think what happens is, look, they'll install the right team, but they're still being involved because the team are not ready to be left alone. So I think it's like riding a bike. The right approach is to, when you hire right people, still have, no matter the level they come in at, make sure you've got stabilizers on. Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is hire somebody that you believe to be good, they're not quite ready, and they screw things up. No, be the founder, be there, be the guide on the side, be the coach, be the mentor. Teach them how you want it done. Really sort of align them with your thinking. When they're ready, then take off the stabilizers and let them ride.
What have you seen from founders when they can see that the business is working without them? What do you see from the founder? How do they feel? Is there like a light bulb moment of, God, I wish I'd done this earlier? There's a moment where I'm not going to have a stroke? What do you see from
all of the
most
above?
of them? Yeah.
All of the above. It's all of those things. They're grateful and everything. And very often they'll plateau themselves for a little while, take a breather. And then I would say about 8% of them come back thinking, okay, well, now what's next? Because it's the challenge of the business that they also appreciate. So then it's, okay, what's next? What's next? And then they start looking, okay, does the business then go to that next level? Do we keep this business as it is? It's doing really well. Then we're going to start off another business. And that's not uncommon. You'll see them start another business, do exactly the same, then another one. And they'll have 3 or 4 businesses. Quite often that they sort of serve each other. And then you've got a nice group of businesses. So it's different, but that's not uncommon either. Well, they may go and do acquisitions. That was the route that John went down. When he started to get stability, time back and everything, he went and bought businesses within his industry and everything and started to integrate them.
And it's almost like they get that love back for, it's almost that thing, isn't it? Where they get the love back for what they did 25 years ago or 20 years ago, or whatever, which they've lost over the last 20 years because they've got the time to re-energize themselves and get themselves back, right?
But they're not doing the same stupid job they've been doing for 20 years.
They've got 20 years experience.
So now the job of the founder has changed. You're now doing new things like, oh, how do I acquire a business? Oh, that's a lot of new things to learn. Then when I acquire it, how do we integrate it? Oh, more stuff to learn. When I'm getting my business ready for sale, more things to learn. So they're becoming more and more skilled.
And if somebody's listening here, right, and they feel they are trapped on that hamster wheels, they are all the things we've been talking about and the issues and things, what should be the first thing, apart from ringing you and going, Peter, I need your help, which is the first thing we should do, what should they be doing, right?
Okay, before they even think about ringing me, don't ring me. First thing to do, go and get the book. Go and get the book and either read the book or listen to the book, because it's an audio. Go through the book first. Do the hamster wheel trap assessment. Do the personal sustainability assessment in the book. Do a number of them. Take stock of where you are. Then, if you are prepared to change, only then if you are prepared to do what it takes to change, then get in touch with me. If you're not prepared to do what it takes to change, contact somebody else.
I suppose the biggest thing for you, to somebody you want to work with, or indeed probably many coaches, is for somebody who's going to listen, somebody who's going to take that criticism, take these things on board, because otherwise there's just no point.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say to people listening or watching today, it's not criticism. All you're ever going to get is feedback. And whoever you end up working with, and I always say don't do business by yourself. Make sure you've got great people in your corner, whether they're mentors, advisors, teachers, coaches, whatever you've got. Make sure you've got good people in your life. It's never criticism. All it ever is going to be feedback. And they'll be able to give you feedback from a very unique position. You're in your business, can't see the wood from your trees. They're looking from the outside in. They're going to see all the stuff you cannot see. So they're not ripping your business apart and telling you you're bad. They're helping you on your journey to achieve your goals. Never forget that.
With all your things you've seen over this period of time, what's the sort of trait you see in the really good founders and really good leaders of businesses?
Hungry, humble, smart. They become lifetime learners, but they encourage lifetime learning within their business. So they elevate their people on that journey. They allow the people in their businesses to become more than they ever thought they could become.
That is some very good advice. Peter, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. There's so much to take away. I know I'm going to be clipping all your comments for days with everything that's come out of this, right? As I said to you when we were recording off, before we came on air, there's some rapid fire questions I have for every one of the guests, and then we go from there and we see how rapid fire you make or not make them. Were you Apple or Android user?
Apple.
Social media platform of choice?
There isn't one. However, probably my go-to for what I do is LinkedIn.
It's amazing the amount of, just a sideway, the amount of people who've come on recently and said, I hate it all. I don't want to use it, but I have to. And LinkedIn or whatever is the way forward, right? Beach or city break?
Neither. Mountains.
That's another common answer as well. Would you travel first class or save the money?
First class.
When traveling, what's the one thing you could never live without?
First class.
Are you a morning or night person?
Very early morning.
Would you rather build something new or fix what's broken?
Well, I think get what I have working exceptionally well. And what I mean by that, every business when you start is going to be an element of broken. I want to make sure I get it working well.
Are you gut instinct or data driven?
I think I trust my gut. I do trust my gut. But for any major decision, I want the data to reinforce my thinking.
Growth or profitability?
Depends on what stage the business is at. And I'll explain. If you're at early stage, for the first 5 years, I probably would go for not so much profitability. I make sure the business is profitable, but put all that money into growth so that I can build a team.
Finally, I'm sat at a bar. What is the drink that I'm getting you?
Coke Zero.
There's no shame in that. It's fine.
But if it's not Coke Zero, then it'll be a really nice wine. And I'll probably go for something like a Polygumi Montrichet.
Very good. Very good. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Peter, for being on the show today. It was really good to have you on board. Lots of great takeaways, and somebody who speaks the truth and speaks and honestly is always really good to have, rather than somebody who's just, this is how it all works. This is really good to have somebody who just tells it as it is. If this is the first episode you've joined of the Business Takeaway podcast, it'd be really great if you can give us a little follow and subscribe to us on the show. And if you have enjoyed today's show, do leave us as a review as well. Those reviews will help us. Anyway, just leaves me to say thank you very much for tuning in today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show.